it's Rebecca Rutherford. Welcome to the What in the Well podcast. My friend Angie Huber and I are here to provide an entertaining and relatable perspective on well-being. If you want to shift your mindset and make incremental progress toward your work and home life goals, you are in the right place. Well, hello, Angie.
Rebecca, happy to see you. Happy Friday.
Thank you. And you know what else? Happy May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it is May right now as we are recording this.
Well, hi, May, Mental Health Awareness Month. I love it.
Well, it just so happens to be our topic today too, which is not an accident.
Look how strategic and intentional we are.
You see this?
Listeners, you see this?
Sometimes
we're here for you.
It sounds like we're winging it, but guess what? We're only mostly winging it. You know what else? Okay.
What else?
The people who are listening aren't going to be able to see this and they're missing out. However, if you can see, I've got my shirt on.
Mind your brainness.
So that is my team's name for the forthcoming NAMI walks. So NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Awesome.
And I am on the board for the St. Louis affiliate. And in a week from now, we have our annual walk fundraiser. So I created a team. This is my team's shirt. I made it myself. I'm pretty proud. But anyway, I like the idea.
So let's cheer you on for giving an intentional plug for your walk as well.
You know, I mean, let's not pretend that I haven't been in marketing for 20 years. So everything is a plug all the time.
Gotta leverage that experience.
Yeah.
Let's open up the conversation about mental health.
Yes, let's please. So mental health has been a big part of, a focus on mental health has been in my life as far back as I can remember, even though I didn't really know that that's what I was doing. I have some of the first books that I remember ever buying for myself were mental health related. And I didn't even think about it that way. I just thought something inside of me is telling me that I need to try to think differently.
Yeah.
And so it's just always been a big part of my life. And then as I grew and the world, you know, like we talked about last time, kind of got its grubby digits on me, I started to realize that I had been doing my future self a favor by looking at all of that content and just kind of trying to learn as much as possible. But you know how some things in your life, you're just like, I don't know why I'm so fascinated by this, or this is so important to me. And it just is.
Yeah.
Just is to me. Mental health is kind of everything to me. So, but yeah, tell me about you. When you hear mental health, what comes to mind?
Yeah. It's a part of me as well. And it's a very personal part of me that started when I was young. And actually this week, May, a couple days ago is the anniversary of when my dad died 29 years ago. So I lost my dad by suicide when I was 15 years old. And when he died, literally the next day, my cousin, I just had to know. Like, I was just like, what? Like, why? And literally my cousin, I remember this so clearly. I'm like, I gotta learn. Like, I just need to understand. We went to and so this is 30 years ago, right? Think about where mental health was even 30 years ago, not a ton. At that time, I mean, emerging, but like, go to the library. I needed to understand suicide, read books on depression. So for me, that was the catalyst or the beginning of understanding and having a deep passion and connection is when I lost my dad by tragically to suicide. What I learned, actually, I did not know because I was young, but when I learned is that my family on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side, had a history, like even my grandparents, a history of unstable mental health. And I don't know if that's what they would have called it then. So anyway, so that began my own personal journey on all of it. So it's very personal. I have to work at it. just like most of us, and be very intentional on my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my social health, like how are my relationships. So it's very, very personal. It's something I care about deeply, and want to help myself, my loved ones, and others, right,
Yeah.
on the journey. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't know that about
yeah,
your dad. I had no
yeah,
idea. And I'm so sorry that you and your family had to go through that. That's as tragic as it gets, you know? And so I thank you so much for sharing that with me. That's
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
What I've learned, 20 years, how can I help to live on the, like, even this week, because it just happened, again, celebrating his anniversary this week, is what can I learn though? How can I share this story with others? How can I help others with their mental health? So, yeah, it was really, really shitty at the time. But then what are the gifts that,
Yeah.
pardon my French, we can X that out if needed, or it's just really, it really was.
No, I mean,
But what are the gifts that have emerged from it? And how do I actually continue to live on my
mm,
dad's legacy that he would have wanted by helping others? So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
this is a very obviously touches my soul topic. So I'm glad we're bringing it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, family history is a big thing, because obviously if it's, if your family has a history of mental health issues or mental illness, then the likelihood that somebody in that family will, generationally, it just kind of gets passed down. But I think the gift of it is truly to have the ability to know and the ability to develop tools as soon as possible that can help you deal with it and help you equip your loved ones and the people in your family system with any tools that you can
Yeah,
have in order to you know almost get ahead of it, I guess, or just know what's happening when it's happening.
absolutely. We've come such a long way, but man, do
Yeah.
we still have such a long ways to go. So
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I participate as a volunteer and board member for NAMI St. Louis. I mean, the work that
mhm.
they do fills a lot of the gaps that we have in America in terms of the care that people can get. And I will share some stats that I've pulled in a moment. But my own journey with mental health has been, um, I don't want to use the word interesting because that makes it sound like it's just, I think at this point I can see it as just kind of interesting because I can take a more objective look at it. But when you're in the weeds of it, it's not interesting.
It's real. So
It's
can we just say it's
complex.
real? It's
Yeah.
complex. It's
Yes.
hard. It's
Yes. Yeah. So what I find just kind of interesting about how things unfolded for me is that um, I still have the brochure that I got over 10 years ago, about 11 years ago, when I was hospitalized for postpartum depression. I have the
yeah,
NAMI brochure still.
yeah,
And even at the time, I didn't realize that we had, reached out to them or that they had supported me in any way. I always knew I was wired a little anxiously and then that I
mhm,
could also pivot into depression.
yeah,
Um, and that I ruminated more than it seemed like other people might. Um, but I didn't really know how poignant that was in my life until I kind of got like sideswiped by postpartum depression and anxiety. And it was so acute that, um, it caught us all off guard. And so when I was trying to find help, I had really good health care. I had a family support system. I had all the resources available with the exception of a good psychiatrist
yeah,
who could work with me in a reasonable amount of time to get me back on track. And
yeah,
so um, I ended up seeing thousands of doctors, countless. My mom took over caregiving responsibilities a lot of time for my daughter, and my husband, he had to go back to work. And so he was trying to balance that with
yeah,
caregiving. And then it was just a really strange experience because my daughter would cry and I couldn't do anything about it. I
yeah,
just couldn't respond. I went offline
yeah,
mentally. And so we went to every doctor possible. We did end up getting connected with a psychiatrist. He was not the right fit for me. His advice was not good.
mhm,
The medication wasn't working. And so
yeah,
ultimately I said, I don't have any more options and I can't go on like this. So I've got to go to the hospital. And so I went in, I was in there for a few days. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. But the gift of it was that I did get the care that I needed, the medication that worked for me, and back on my feet. And I'm lucky, because it was expensive. It was out of network for my insurance. I had somebody who could care for my daughter while I was in there because they wouldn't allow me to see her while I was in there.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky in that regard. And I'm lucky that it set me on a path of learning about my own mental health condition. And ultimately, this has evolved over the last decade and a half, but I've learned so much about myself. It's been an up and down thing, but I would say for the most part, it's like I feel equipped now and in a place where I can finally start helping other people with it and speaking about it in a way that empowers me and doesn't make me feel like there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's not.
No.
And good for you. Thank you for sharing that as well. And kudos to you for asking for help.
Yeah.
Right. Because in those moments, you feel all alone.
100%. Yes.
I've had my up and downs with depression through the years. I usually normally have a counselor or a coach, right? So I work with a coach. It's something that I just need. It's part of what I need to keep my mind right.
Yeah.
It goes in waves, it ebbs and flows, and the more I can recognize, okay, I'm falling in a funk here.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for getting the help and reaching out. And even though it wasn't, and the persistence, like even though you had that bad experience, it didn't stop you. You kept. The first time that I had experienced, I would say like depression, and that's what it was. I was seeing a counselor, and then they recommended me to go see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist, as you know, like provides the medicine. Well, the medicine was an antidepressant that actually made me gain more weight and make me feel more tired. And it was literally, for me, it wasn't, I'm not saying that the meds are there and the meds can work, and if they're working, rock on. It did not work for me, and that's when I had to make a choice. I got to do some hard mental rewiring of my own. I want to figure out how I can get myself to a place, because I can't keep taking the medicine and keep blowing up and gaining more weight, because that's actually counterproductive to me feeling good about myself.
Right. Absolutely. That's one of the risks, ultimately that is, it's pretty well known with medication, is that any medication, whether it's for a mental health condition or anything else, it may remedy something, but there's side effects. And so you do have to kind of weigh your options. Plus, with mental health medication, a lot of it is just it's trial and error, which can be part of that process. And that's when you're in the throes of a mental health crisis or, a season, there's waiting is just excruciating. Waiting to feel better is excruciating. And I think when you're in it, it's hard, but when you're caring for somebody who's in it as well, it can be excruciating, because you don't know exactly what's going on inside of their mind. And it's not like a broken arm where you can see the progress that's being made to heal.
It's invisible.
It's invisible. Yeah. And it's just extremely tricky. So,
I'm all about with you on how do we normalize this, right? How do we literally normalize this? I have, and I truly believe, just like our bodies, you mentioned the broken arm, or if your back hurts, or you go to the chiropractor, you whatever it is for your bodies, you go see the doctor. This is the doctor for our minds, right? And our emotions. There should be no shame in that whatsoever. It is just asking for the help that you need, just like you would do for your body. Your mind and our bodies are all that make us up as humans. It's part of our makeup of who we are. And so
absolutely.
I am no shame here asking for help.
No.
And I know that that's usually that's so hard when you're in it, is that you feel alone, and you don't, where do you go to ask for help?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some What are some, so here we are, look at us, we are humans, and we're all, what do we say, like we are imperfect, right? We're
Absolutely.
imperfect human beings, and that doesn't mean that we're any less than. We still are enough through all
Yeah,
of that. Through all of
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. I mean, my situation is not, I will admit in the beginning, I was like, that's a ding on my resume, man. Like I had to humble myself to go get help, that level of help, because I really, and I still do, I think there are some people who would hear that and judge me for it and say, I don't know. I'm personally, you have to make the choice. Are you ashamed or are you shameless about it? And at this,
Okay.
I've chosen to become shameless about it and to share, because I don't want a single person out there who needs help to feel like there's any shame in getting the help that you need or being
Yeah.
open about it. Um, to your point, I think unless we talk about it, unless we normalize it, then there are going to be people who have to suffer in silence, and that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
When has asking for help ever been weak? Right. This is where
Yeah.
I want to help to change the narrative.
Yeah.
Asking for help, to me, and asking for what you need is a signal of strength,
Absolutely.
signal of courage,
Yeah.
signal of bravery.
Well, yeah.
It's easy, to me, it's easy to just sweep it under the rug. Like if you have a hurt back and you
Mm,
just suffer through it, right?
right.
And you think you're strong, is that like,
Yeah. I
maybe,
just, I think
but
there's
you know,
right. I just think there's just a lot of misunderstanding when you're not born with a temperament that is predisposed to more sensitivity or more emotional, variance. It's really hard to relate to that, and so I think there are a lot of people who can't, who just genuinely cannot relate to that. But that doesn't make it any less real for the people who do
right.
experience that. And I think that's where that kind of empathy or compassion comes in, where it's like, just because someone else has a pain in their body and I don't, doesn't make it any less real or possible.
That's
It
right.
doesn't make it invented.
Right.
I have an analogy that I came up with recently about mental health where I see it as a thermostat. So I think we're all born with a thermostat. Like we're all houses and we're born with a thermostat. And the hot and the cold are levels of anxiety and depression that we can achieve as a human who has a thermostat. Some people's some people are just born with a thermostat that runs a little hotter and runs a little colder. Some people
Yeah.
are born with a baseline temperature that's just pretty moderate or pretty even most of the time. But if you're born with that even temperature, I am extraordinarily happy for you. But please have some consideration and empathy and love for people who are just born with a thermostat that runs a little hotter or colder. And just
Yeah.
like if your HVAC system weren't working in your house, if you're too hot for too long or if you're too cold for too long, you have to get help. You
Yeah.
absolutely it's just possible that something needs to be fixed by a professional, or you need to ask your support system to come in and just get you back to the baseline that is best, your personal best. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Let's get into the tactics. You said you had a couple
Yeah.
stats to share. I also would like to open up, like, what do you do? So
Yeah.
what have you learned? How do you manage your mental health on some practical things that you do each and every day? And I can share a couple of mine too.
Perfect. Yeah. So a couple of the things. So if you go to nami.org/mhstats, and we'll link to it in the show notes, there's a lot of good information, a good data around mental health in America. And so a couple of facts are that 1 in 5 US adults experience a mental illness each year.
Mhm.
And, mental illness it has a definition that's a little different than mental health, in that mental illness is truly that thermostat that somebody's born with, where they run a little hot or cold. And that's 1 in 5, so if you think about it,
20%.
yeah, and
20%.
exactly. And 1 in 20 US adults experience a serious mental illness each year, which if you live in a community with 100 houses, then you can just expect that 20 of those houses are experiencing serious mental illness in any given year. And that's quite a bit. And most of the time you don't know what's going on inside of that house,
I
right?
don't see it. It's
Yeah.
invisible. Yeah.
It is you can also break down the facts by different age ranges, the prevalence amongst certain demographics. So, for instance, 1 in 6 US youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. So that's a lot to be cognizant of as a parent or as somebody. I mean, we're all in a community where there are youth. And so just kind of understanding why it's so important that kids get educated on mental illness and mental health, know what to do in a crisis, know how to identify if somebody they know is struggling, or so none of us are immune to either having this or being close to somebody who has this, or being in a community with somebody who has this. One other thing that I think is extraordinarily important to consider is that, if you live in a city where there is a decent supply of caregivers or professionals, mental health professionals, that's one thing. But in rural populations or in other underserved communities, that number goes drastically down, and there are 155 million Americans who live in what's considered a mental health shortage area, where there are not enough mental health professionals to meet the demands. And that's about half of the American population. So
Yeah.
we're talking about a real serious issue here.
We're in a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for virtual and remote. Like, maybe one of the gifts is that, like, so much of the mental health help that is available now, you can get, well, if you have access to the internet, right? Like, you can
Right.
get, but
Yeah.
still, yes, it's
Yeah.
So what are some things that you do?
I have a team that I work with. I have a psychiatrist. I have a cognitive behavioral therapist. Professionally, I've used a coach too. And I also have, my family, who are all very aware of what my mental health looks like, and where I can tend to go. And they can even look at my face and know, kind of where I'm at. So I've surrounded myself with people with whom I'm very, very open about how I'm doing. Those are some of the kind of more resource oriented things. I still read a lot on it. I still read plenty of books about mental health conditions, my own and other people's. So I never stop trying to learn about it. But really on a day-to-day basis, I think I have had to learn how to, you mentioned this earlier, just kind of rewire my brain to stop going down to the dark place every single time I start to get hijacked by something. And it's way harder than it sounds. It's not, I mean, our brains are plastic, we have what's called neuroplasticity, where it is possible to rewire your thinking, but it's building muscle. It's like repetition. It's identifying that voice in your head sooner that is leading you into a bad place, and learning how to look at it as if from a balcony and try to objectively divert your thinking into a different path. And I work on that constantly. I work on that constantly. I'm on medicine. That helps. I journal. I ask for self-care time when I'm in dire need, obviously, or I try to bake it into my schedule in anticipation. There are so many things that I do. What about you?
Man, very similar. So I have a team. So I'll start with where you started. Is I also have a team. So I have a coach for my mind. I have a health coach for the physical, but that is so connected to my mental health. I do energy healing. So I have a Reiki master that's really been helpful with the mind body connection and releasing that and getting me to a deeper awareness. So, and having a good support system. So when I go in my kind of like peaks and valleys, and when I'm in a valley, reaching out and just acknowledging, like, I'm in a bad place. My family, same thing, knows, and especially my husband, like, hey, I'm just in a bad place. Here's what I need, and what does that look like? it also, for me, I'm a continuous learner on it as well, always learning about it and always practicing, literally daily. My defaults, I almost have to, like, the reason why I do I am statements and gratitude journal and have my vision board literally from the moment I wake up, it's to get me into the mindset that I want to be. I am defaulted to be hijacked from the moment I wake up. I'm
Mhm.
literally wired to be defaulted to the hijack mode. And
Mhm.
I have to do the practices literally every day to get myself into a in the state of mind where I'm more choosing hope and love and versus fear and scarcity and anxiety. So it is a daily work that I do every single day. And the days that I don't, I rarely let a day slip where I don't do those mental reps, if you will, or mental workout or mental fitness or whatever.
Mhm.
I can tell. I
Mhm.
can tell. I can tell a difference.
100%. Yeah.
I am very intentional about my sleep. I'm intentional about my water intake. I
Mhm.
try and fuel my body, my weight. Not it's not about the weight and about being, it's about, for me, it's how I'm fueling my body, and I'm very aware of the impact that certain things
Mhm.
have on my body. That doesn't mean I don't eat them, right? Like I love a good
Right.
nacho and like loaded with all the things, but
Yeah.
I can tell the impact that it has when I make those choices.
100%. Yeah, I have a friend who talks about it as brain food. She's
It's
like,
brain
I have
food.
to eat some brain food every now
Yeah.
and then. Look, I get some ice cream or whatever, and
Yeah.
my body doesn't always respond great to it. And I also know that my brain is going to be a little
My
sluggish after, but
brain. It
every now and then
does.
I'm like, I gotta have some ice cream. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love the consideration for the mind, body, spirit connection, because that is, we are all just that trifecta, and when
Yeah.
one piece is out of whack, then, it kind of cascades into the others. So if you're not taking care of your mind and your spirit, your body is going to suffer, and all the way around the triangle. One
Yeah.
thing I also like to do is I do also keep kind of a consistent body movement practice. And
Hmm.
I kind of made a joke the other day. I'm not a fitness coach by any stretch. I do encourage my clients, my coaching clients, to participate in some sort of body movement.
Yep.
But I always thought, that we had to find something that we just loved. But I'm
Yeah.
like, just find something you don't hate. Like,
Just move your body.
yes, exactly. Just find some, like, love is a
Yes.
stretch goal. Just
Yes.
find something you don't hate. So I
Yes.
don't hate yoga. I don't hate the high intensity interval training that I do when I go.
Yeah.
I love walking in the woods. I hike all the
Yes.
time as much as I can. And that feeds my spirit. So it's not only helping from the physical body perspective, because look, I'm 42 years old. My body shape or whatever is never going to be what it was growing up. I am so cool with that now. I know,
Yeah.
trust me, it was not always this way, but I prioritize strong over shape, like skinny, whatever. I just want to feel strong. And because when I am physically capable of doing the things that I feel like I want to do, and I'm not competitive with it, I am mentally stronger. I'm
That's right.
spiritually stronger. So I use my body movement practices as a way to achieve a better mental health state.
Yeah. Some days I can only get 15 minutes in of movement, but
Mhm.
it's still good enough. And
Absolutely.
it's good enough. Like I've just, you and I talked about like the mindset of I have just enough time to go for a 10-minute walk. I have just enough time to run up
Yeah.
the flight of stairs. I have just enough to just move. Motion is lotion. And
Yes.
it and you just gotta you gotta have anything, anything is better than nothing. Anything is better
Absolutely.
than nothing.
Yeah.
For my mental health, my movement practices, I same thing. I walk, I like to bike, and I
Mhm.
do have this program called Eccentrics that I do. I found I don't know, a decade ago, and it's for me the best. It's like yoga, tai chi, stretching, flexibility all in one, and it's literally 25 minutes a day. And I feel so strong. I can feel my body getting energy in it, and it's literally what carries me through the day. So
I'm gonna have to
when
try
I
that.
eccentrics, and you'll love her. Like
Okay.
it's love her, but then all the thing you got, there's a whole story I can get into about eccentrics, but I love it. And but that is my baseline.
Yeah.
At 25 minutes a day, a lot of times, if I can get my mental fitness practices in, and that 25-minute movement, I have the energy, and it just sets me, it's a different trajectory for the day.
Absolutely.
But it's not like I wake up motivated, and it's not like I wake up in this mental state. I literally have to do the weights to get here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've said this before. I wake up every morning feeling sucker punched, you know? It's
Yes.
like
Yes,
I
I'm
don't
hijacked.
feel, yeah. When
I
I'm
want to
tired,
literally put the like, I don't want to get up.
no.
I hate whatever, like feel stressed, and I want to put the blankets back over my head.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like I wake
Oh,
up early before my kids get up. It's never anything I thought I would do, but I have to because that is my very coveted mental health me time, you know,
yeah.
where I'm just like in my body. It's I don't spiritual, it's everything. And if I don't get that, the whole day just sets the tone for the whole day.
You know what's making me think of? Do you remember the movie 40 First Dates?
Oh yeah.
Drew Barrymore, who
Yes.
had, was it what's it called, amnesia? What's it when you can't remember?
Yeah.
Right, like, so she would wake up, like she'd wake up and freaking out, right, from
Right.
the, because she didn't remember, and then they had to play the video to get her grounded
Yes.
each day, and then she could have her day. That's how I
Yes.
feel like every day. I wake up hijacked, like, and then I have to do the couple of things, and
Right.
then it literally whole new attitude. And
Absolutely.
it's crazy to me how much gratitude, when you're
Hmm.
just thinking about 5 things you're thankful for, how that can just shift and pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Anything else? So I guess, what's our key learnings here, Rebecca, that we're taking away? Ask for help. You're not alone. I know you hear, people say that all the time, but you're
Yeah.
really not alone. Ask for help.
Yeah.
Um, be curious. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
and what's one, or, so much of it is a lot of this is an internal game, but it's
Right.
an internal game that you don't need to do alone. Like, look at
Absolutely.
us. We have teams of people literally that we have
Right.
surrounded ourselves with in our support network, because
Yeah.
this is a daily practice.
Well, and I want to also acknowledge too that if you are somebody else's team, if you are a caregiver of somebody who is struggling with a mental health condition or a season of mental health crisis, you're not alone either. There are support groups, there are resources available. I would hate to think that somebody would suffer that alone too. I mean, when you're caring for somebody else, you need care. And so there are a lot of tools available, especially through NAMI, free tools, free support groups, presentations, learning. So if you're helping somebody, it's also important that you get the help that you need as well. Family or mental illness or mental health conditions are a family condition, they're a community condition.
This is not a selfish act to take care of your self-care. I
Yeah.
truly, for me, if I don't work, nothing else works. Nothing. I don't show up in the way that I want. I don't have the energy to do that. If I don't work, it is not selfish to
Mhm.
invest in your mental health. It is, to me, it's just as critical as breathing and getting up and walking around. Like, it is so necessary to ensure that you're functioning, that part of your body is functioning properly.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're somebody who has a hard time understanding or relating to somebody who has a mental health condition, just believe them. You
Yeah.
don't have to truly understand on the inside what that's like, but just believe them. That's all
Yeah.
people, you know, at a minimum, they may not need you to fix it, but they just want you to hear them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we wrap up, I really appreciate you sharing today and being vulnerable.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. I think it's a daily practice, just like anything else. Like, I just treat it like brushing my teeth, right? My mental health, my mental fitness is helping me to stay on the path.
Yeah,
But it
exactly.
doesn't mean I don't have seasons of the ups and downs, because I still do.
Always. It's just the way that life unfolds. But yeah, the more tools that you can put in your tool belt, the better you'll be prepared for the next time.
Yeah. So listeners, you matter.
Yeah.
Your mental health matters.
Yeah.
Keep
And if you need,
investing in your mental health.
yes, please reach out to a professional or family members or loved ones, anyone that you trust if you're having a crisis.
Yep. All right. On that note, have a good rest of your May. We'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What in the Well. Be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, share it in the comments. Stay well until we meet again.